Hello guys, back with another video, and today's video is about James Dean and his tragic life. James Dean was an actor whose career expanded for 5 years in Hollywood. James Dean is considered an icon in old Hollywood because he brought his personal experiences, attitude, and feelings into his acting. Dean blurred the line between reality and fantasy in Hollywood. He did something that few other actors had done before him. He invited audiences to understand him intimately through the lens of fictional storytelling. This video will mainly focus on his tragic life and what he had to do to reach stardom in Hollywood. Disclaimer: I am not sure what is true or false in this video. I just find the information about a celebrity and make videos. This is not a biography channel, and it is just for entertainment purposes only. Please do not take any information from this video as factual. Thanks. James Dean was born on February 8, 1931, at the Seven Gables apartment on the corner of 4th Street and McClure Street in Marion, Indiana, the only child of Mildred Marie Wilson and Winton Dean. James Dean claimed that his mother was partly Native American, and that his father belonged to a line of original settlers that could be traced back to the Mayflower. James' father was a dental technician at a local veterans hospital. James' father didn't like his job and found it to be dull. When James was about 3 years old, the family moved south 10 miles to Fairmount, where Winton decided to take up bullfrog farming. During the Great Depression, bullfrog farming was not profitable because nobody could afford such a restaurant delicacy. The farm failed, and they returned to Marion before deciding on their next adventure by relocating to Santa Monica, California. The move proved good for James Dean, however, it was hard for his mother. Mildred Dean never felt comfortable in California. She missed her family in Indiana and felt isolated in her new surroundings. Although Mildred had been close to her son before, life in California drew them even nearer. James' mother made up a wishing game, where James would write down a wish and put it under his pillow before going to sleep. Mildred would retrieve it during the night and do her best to make the wish come true the next day. She also built little theaters out of cardboard and encouraged play acting using dolls, read poetry to her son, and introduced him to art. Mildred even enrolled the child in tap dance lessons and taught him to play the violin. He was very close to his mother, who had an obvious influence on his desire to one day be an actor. At school he had difficulty making friends. His classmates ridiculed his musical studies and teased him about his middle name. Then, in May of 1940, shortly before her 30th birthday, Mildred Dean developed severe chest pains and was hospitalized. Her condition was soon diagnosed as cancer. Winton Dean's mother came from Indiana to help out during the illness. Mildred's chances of recovery were not good. James Dean's grandmother had come prepared with an offer to take young Jimmy back to Indiana to be raised by relatives. She was in California only 7 weeks when Mildred died, on July 14, 1940. Deep in doctor's bills from his wife's illness, Winton Dean agreed with his mother to let Jimmy return to Indiana with her. At the time, he spoke hopefully of sending for his son as soon as he got back on his feet. 18 months later, however, he was drafted into the army, and whatever plans he may have had were permanently shattered. Jimmy and his grandmother rode east on the same train that carried his mother's body home. When James Dean was back in Indiana, he stayed with his aunt's family. They lived on a farm, and Jimmy soon learned to adapt to his new environment. He was given chores to do, such as milking cows and helping his cousin feed the livestock. Growing up on the farm, his closest relatives said that he was ill-mannered, ill-bred, and caused a lot of mischief. He would wrestle and kill cats and fight. He would climb trees and fences and do things that he was not supposed to do. A schoolmate said that James Dean rigged up an elevator from the top of the barn and nearly broke his neck when the rope snapped. Another time he almost got drowned exploring a fenced-in pothole that was supposed to be bottomless. Others who knew the actor as a child recalled traits he never outgrew. He was moody, unruly, and unpredictable. On one occasion, trying out a new stunt, Dean lost his 4 front teeth and had to be fitted for bridge work. At school, with a little prodding from his friends, he could quickly do imitations of various teachers. Once, when Dean was in the middle of an impersonation of the school's principal, the man happened by and overheard him. Supposedly, he was so amused by the boy's talent that he failed to punish him. At family gatherings, Jimmy would entertain everyone with his mimicry. His family encouraged his talents and liked to speculate that perhaps he took after his great-grandfather Dean, a well-known local auctioneer who was famous for his ability to entertain a crowd while disposing of his wares. During his high school years, Dean successfully pursued sports and focused on drama classes. His classmates saw him as different. During his freshman year, he made both the basketball and track teams. By sophomore year, he earned his letter in baseball as well, playing around the infield. On the basketball court, he became an outstanding player, making up for what he lacked in height with a quick, aggressive style. In 1948, Dean received his first press notice, an item that appeared in the sports pages of the Fairmount News. He was once expelled from school when a classmate interrupted Dean when he was reading a monologue in class. Dean and the classmate fought outside, and Dean was held responsible for initiating the fight. Outside of school, Dean became friendly with a local Methodist pastor, the Reverend James A. DeWeerd. Like Dean, Reverend DeWeerd was something of an outsider in town. Originally from Cincinnati, DeWeerd was a former Army chaplain who had served in World War II. He had been with the infantry at Casino and had suffered a severe shrapnel wound. For this, the Army awarded him a Purple Heart as well as a Silver Star, for gallantry under fire. Well educated, a man of many interests, DeWeerd prided himself on his cosmopolitan views. In music, his taste ran to Tchaikovsky, and his conversation was often sprinkled with quotations from the works of writers he admired. To Dean, DeWeerd became almost a hero. In turn, DeWeerd sensed in the young boy an inquisitive mind. Under DeWeerd's tutelage, Jimmy's horizons gradually began to broaden. DeWeerd loaned him books from his library and showed him movies he had taken on his travels. From DeWeerd, Dean learned something about music, as well as the other arts. He even tried his hand at sculpture, and one afternoon brought a small clay figure to DeWeerd for his approval. To DeWeerd, Jimmy was more open than he was with others. He spoke to him about his mother and confessed the guilt he had felt because of her death. DeWeerd did his best to comfort him. In school, Dean's interests also began to expand beyond the athletic field. He joined the debating society and was elected president of the Thespians, the school drama club. After graduating from high school, he packed his bags and decided to move to California and become an actor. In California, he reunited with his father and expressed the desire of being an actor, to which his father did not approve of. In college, Dean changed his major to drama and did a commercial for Pepsi Cola. He moved to New York and enrolled in Lee Strasberg Actors Studio. There he began to study the craft of acting and developed a deep passion for the art. While staying in New York City, he received support from Roger Brackett, a radio director for an advertising agency. While attending a class conducted by Marlon Brando in 1951, Dean stayed after the session to meet his idol, beginning an intense sexual affair with Marlon that lasted through the winter. Now, according to the rumors, Dean was in love with Brando, and they became lovers, but it led to a sadistic and masochistic relationship. Brando was only in love with himself and would make Dean loiter outside his apartment in the desperate hope his idol would invite him inside his home. Brando also treated Dean horribly. He mentioned to Bast how Brando would stub out cigarettes on him. Dean was completely smitten with Brando, often stalking him when Marlon was out on dates with others. Dean groomed himself to become a Brando clone, copying his walk, speech, and acting style. Dean immersed himself in the techniques of method acting, and he landed a role on Broadway as a boy who seduces a male tourist in André Gide's The Immoralist. In 1951, Dean landed his first role on a show called Family Theater. He only did an episode titled Hill Number 1. 3 more roles would come his way that year as the actor honed his craft, and a series of similar roles carried his career through the early 1950s. Before fame, James Dean lived with a roommate, Willem Bast. According to Bast, Dean would go out at night and stand at benches, wait for a car to pull up with a man and get in. Bast concluded that Dean was also active in the underground gay scene in New York City. He supposedly caught his first break with the help of a top Hollywood producer while he worked at parking cars for a studio lot. Bast mentions that it wasn't until much later that Dean and him went to Borrego Springs, rented a cabin, and finally did the deed. Dean also became a typical Hollywood playboy, and would sleep with anybody to get ahead, according to biographer Darwin Porter. Other rumors stated that James Dean had a relationship with Walt Disney. Disney supposedly met Dean one night at the home of George Cukor, the director whose films included My Fair Lady. Cukor felt that he owed Dean a favor to make up for casting Anthony Perkins instead of him in the 1953 drama, The Actress. Disney's initial impression was that Dean was a clean-cut all-American boy, and after getting reassurances from Cukor he was discreet, the three went upstairs and did the deed. James Dean attended a lot of Hollywood parties with William Bast for notoriety, hoping that studio producers would help advance his career. James, when away from these parties and the people associated, would act annoyed and despise the fact they looked at him like a victim. However, James Dean still attended these parties and allowed other bigwigs in Hollywood to give him head in return for opportunities in Hollywood. But to no avail. James Dean was used and got nothing in return, but due to his good looks many people in the industry flirted, called, and donated gifts to him in return for sex. Famous women the actor bedded included Joan Crawford, Judy Garland, Marilyn Monroe, and Elizabeth Taylor, all starlets with whom it didn't hurt to be seen with in public. Dean supposedly wanted to marry Monroe, but the actress claimed that doing so would cause the couple to destroy each other. In 1955, James did 2 movies called East of Eden and Rebel Without a Cause. On the set of East of Eden, Dean had disagreements with director Elia Kazan, but he delivered an outstanding performance. After the success of East of Eden, people began to speculate about Dean's sexuality. Dean's engagement to actress Piera Angeli quieted rumors of his bisexuality, but he was widely quoted as saying, when pressed about his sexual orientation, that he wouldn't go through life with one hand tied behind his back. Angeli's abrupt breaking off of the engagement and her subsequent marriage to singer Vic Damone left Dean the subject of further speculation. It is known that Dean frequented gay bars, and people who knew him at the time said he was homosexual, not bisexual. During the making of his last film, Giant, starring Elizabeth Taylor and Rock Hudson. During production, James Dean moved in with Rock Hudson but moved out claiming that Rock Hudson tried to queer him. He called Rock Hudson homophobic slurs and French kissed him to offend him. Dean considered it hypocritical that Rock was maintaining this hetero facade in public while privately hitting on him. Both men were fighting over Elizabeth Taylor's affection. Elizabeth and Rock would spend the night together eating chocolate and drinking vodka. James intervenes between Rock and Elizabeth's relationship. Elizabeth and James develop a friendship, and James confessed to her about being molested when he was age 11 by a minister and had a sexual relationship with his pastor during his senior year of high school. According to a writer, Reverend DeWeird admits to having inappropriate relations with James Dean during his youth. After he was done with Giant, he bought a Porsche 550 Spyder. Not long before his tragic death, he took part in a commercial where he talked about road safety. Additionally, 2 hours before his death, he got a ticket for speeding. Around 5:30, a car being driven by a man of the name Donald Turnipseed behind him slammed into Jimmy's Spyder, breaking his jaw, crushing his left femur, and practically severing his head from his body. Dean was pronounced dead on arrival at 6:20 p.m. by the attending emergency room physician, Dr. Robert Bossert. The cause of death listed on Dean's death certificate is listed as a broken neck, multiple fractures of the upper and lower jaw, both arms broken, and internal injuries. His estate went to his father, who he barely spoke to, and a funeral was held in Fairmount. He was buried near his childhood home, not far from his mother. Rest in heaven, James Dean. Alright guys. This is the end of this video. If you like this video, click on the thumbs up, subscribe, share and leave a comment. Be back with another video.